Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. It's Wednesday. How are you guys doing? I hope everybody's doing well who's listening to my show. I have a really interesting guest today. I have Letao Wang on, and he is the acclaimed author of Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, and he's a professional astrologist and a tarot specialist, and he's going to join me in just a couple of minutes. Thank you to my regulars who tune in every week. It means the world to me. And if you're tuning in for the first time, I want to say welcome. Just a little bit about my show and me. If you're listening right now, the show is live. We record live 4 p.m. Eastern Time each Wednesday, but you can always listen to previous shows or this show at another time. So Om Times puts it up in their archives. I take every show and I put it under the podcast on my website, Postcards to the Universe, and it has all the descriptions of the shows. So if you like the format of the show and you want to see what other guests I have, you could just go on my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com, or on Om Times Radio in the archives, and there's a description of each guest. And I like to have lots of different kinds of guests to keep my show interesting, and I meet the most interesting people, like today's show, which I'm excited to talk to Letao. So, yeah, it's fun doing this show. I just love it. I meet the most interesting people from all over the world. So those of you who are just hearing me and found my show for the first time, about me, I'm an author also, and I'm a photographer and an artist myself, and I have a book titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams, and my book is all about manifesting and using the law of attraction, and I had people create what I call a manifesting postcard, which is kind of like a little mini vision board, and people would put on something that they wanted to bring into their life, and when that did show up in their lives, I would photograph the postcard and I would share their stories. So there's 30 of those in the book. Yeah, there's 30 of those in the book. And I broke it down in areas of our lives where we want more abundance, which is love and relationships, our monies, our career, our health. Those are all the areas that we always want to increase our abundance. So I have a lot of exercises and writing tips to get us to get clear on what it is we want to manifest. So if you're interested, you can find my book on Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and I hope that you do find that interesting, because I also started doing live readings from my book on my social media, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I post the videos. So I've been reading everybody's story and showing their postcard. They're 5 minutes long, and I've been having a lot of fun reading them, and I've also been re-photographing the postcards, because the book came out in 2019 and here we are already in 2024. God, time just flies. Wow. And it's very different the way I'm photographing the postcards now than when I originally started. So it's been a lot of fun doing this kind of work, and I hope that you guys, it's sparking an interest in you to send me a manifesting postcard. So please do that. If you go to my website, the address is listed on there, and how to create one is also on there. And of course, you can reach out to me and send it and have, if you have any questions. I love getting them. I love when people ask me questions about them. So yeah, I hope that you do it, because they're a lot of fun. They really are, to create them. I got a couple workshops going on. One is called Manifesting Through Gratitude, a visual journey, where we use gratitude to manifest and our camera phones. You can find that out about, that, God, say that 10 times fast, on my website. Everything's on my website, it links you to my social medias, everything. So the workshops are on there. And I also teach a manifesting postcard, how to create a manifesting postcard. It's a one-day workshop. It's a lot of fun. So check it out. All right. Let me get to my guest because I'm excited to talk to him. Letao Wang, acclaimed author of Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, is a professional astrologist, tarot specialist, and the founder and spiritual counselor of the Healing Kingdom. He has been offering astrology, tarot, and numerology readings to clients in Hong Kong and abroad since 2015. In addition to his services, he shares his insights through bustle.com's astrology column, where he is a regular contributor. In the Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, we embark on a transformative journey with this guidebook, leaving behind the familiar gods and stepping into stories of humans like Helen of Troy, Daedelus, I may have said that wrong and he can correct me, and Orpheus. Each connects to a zodiac sign, filling the tales with astrological significance. The book not only narrates, but provides real-life examples from spiritual counseling sessions, helping you apply these heroic lessons to your life. It's not just storytelling, it's a voyage of self-discovery. An excellent marketer and sensitive intuitive, Wang was named the best astrologer and tarot specialist in 2021 by Hong Kong's Most Outstanding Business Award and Spiritual Guide of the Year in 2020 by Hong Kong's Live magazine, and was given Hong Kong's Influencers Award, in 2019 and 2020 by Hong Kong Living magazine. His own education includes a master's in counseling, a master's in translating and interpreting Chinese and English, an advanced diploma in applied astrology, and a bachelor's in English. So if you want to find out more about Letao, you can go to his website, which I'm going to read it and spell it out for you. It's thehealingkingdom.com, www.thehealing, kingdom, KINGDOM.com. Welcome, Letao. Thanks for being here with me today.
Hi, hello, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me.
You're calling from Hong Kong, right? That's what you told me right before we went on? Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's a first. It's a first for my show, having somebody all the way over from Hong Kong calling in. So, Letao, it's really specific. I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about this specific oracle deck. You have others also, but how did you get into this kind of work where you started doing astrology and tarot and numerology? Were you always interested in that as a kid? Like, how did you find yourself doing that?
To be honest, when I was a kid, right, I actually had, I knew nothing about the spiritual world, the mystical side of our lives, right? I mean, I grew up in a very traditional Chinese family, and none of my parents were actually interested in, spirituality and astrology. And I would say my first encountering with astrology was quite late. I think that was back in the early, let's say maybe 2008, 2007. So that was around my early 20s. I was living in Sydney, Australia around that time. And very fortunately, I encountered my first astrology teacher in Sydney, and I was a client at that time. Yeah, I was not really systematically studying it. I just walked into his shop in Sydney, and and he did a very quick reading for me, and I would say that was a very eye-opening experience for me. Yeah, at that time, and that's how I started to become interested in discovering more about astrology and mythology.
I mean, I've always been into it since I was a kid, and this is like totally my wheelhouse. I love astrology and numerology. I'm learning more about numerology now as I'm older than I ever did before, but it's really, really interesting. And you brought in with these cards, especially this Greek and Roman mythology. And I remember studying that back in school a long time ago, hearing these stories. They're very fascinating. So what is it about the Greek and Roman mythology that you wanted to incorporate into your cards, and how does that correlate with the astrology, the tarot, and everything?
Right.
Yeah, I'll let you talk.
Right.
Go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
that's a great question, actually, because I think this has a lot to do with my first astrology teacher. Yeah, he was really different. He, I remember the first time. I actually we had our first lesson. He told me that I should be expecting something very, very different from most astrology. Compared to most astrology teachers, right? And I said, why? And he said, because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Greek mythology. And so usually, when you study astrology, for example, a very typical thing that a teacher will do is they will start from explaining, let's say, the 12 zodiac signs, and they will start talking about, the basic meanings of each planet and the house systems, to just borrow my teacher's words, and he found it very bookish, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what he did with me was he taught me mythology. He was telling me all the fascinating stories from Iliad and Odyssey and other famous Greek literature. And then he would throw a question at me saying, okay, now you have heard the story, let's say, between Apollo and Hermes. So what do you think the planet Mercury means? Because the planet Mercury is the Roman name, and the counterpart is the Greek counterpart is Hermes. So from the story, what do you think the planet Mercury symbolizes on our chart? And so my early days, learning and study about a planet and astrology was really it was deeply rooted from my understanding about the mythological stories. And so for me, they were never really different things anyway, Right. So when I was creating Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, it was just really right up my alley. Yeah. I really wanted to publish a book to talk about Greek mythology and the fascinating stories, but I want to talk about them from an astrological perspective and how we can find wisdom. And sometimes it's about a very simple self-analysis through those stories, and then we can also connect that with our sun sign, our moon sign, our ascendant sign, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can see how you would marrying the tarot and the stories from the life of the Roman gods and the Greek gods and what we're supposed to learn from them. Yeah, I can see how putting those together would really be really interesting. And just FYI, just so you know, Mercury is my ruler. I'm a Gemini, so I'm very I'm familiar with Mercury, right? And it's no surprise that I fell into radio as a Gemini, and Mercury being my ruler. Literally, I fell into it. It wasn't something that I ever thought that I would do. So it makes sense, right? Yeah, it makes total sense. What? Go ahead.
I'm actually quite curious about one thing. Yeah. So we are actually finishing Mercury retrograde very, very soon. Okay, so it's around today, tomorrow-ish, right? Yeah. So we've been going through Mercury retrograde for the past 3 weeks. Do you feel that you tend to be affected by Mercury retrograde being a Gemini?
This one in particular, I was more than I've noticed in the past. There was a lot of technological glitches that kept coming up for me in this past one. But usually I enjoy a Mercury retrograde. I really do. Because I find myself going back and reworking things, or that's when I get into my organizing and getting rid of things and like reevaluating things and where my life is at. So I find those times very very productive in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, for me personally. But this one, I don't know what was going on. I just kept having one glitch after another of things just not working. And it was all technological based, and so that was my experience. Yeah. Now, what is your sign? What are you? What's your sign?
So my sun sign is I'm a Cancer. Yeah, my sun sign. But my ascendant sign is Virgo. So I'm also ruled by Gemini.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Gemini. I'm also ruled by Mercury.
Yeah. Virgos and Geminis are Mercury rulers. Yeah, I'm a Sun in a double Leo, which is interesting. And I've learned a lot more about Leo in the last probably 5 years than I ever studied before, which is kind of makes sense. And I also have a lot of earthy signs in my chart. And that makes a lot of sense why I love being homebound a lot, and I have all this stuff. So it's interesting for people who are, because I'm sure you know this, most people just know their sun sign, and that's all they read.
Correct,
and then they'll be like, well, you don't seem like a Virgo or a Gemini or a typical Cancer or whatever. And you're like, yeah, because you're not looking at my whole chart, right? Which
and
individual.
Actually, so that's one of the questions that I tend to be asked during my counseling session. Some clients would say, let's say I'm an Aries. I don't feel like an Aries at all, right? So how do you explain that, right? So that's actually a very good question, just in case our audience is interested in hearing this. The sun sign is not really something that we were born with, actually. So in astrology, we see that our sun sign is the place where we are heading towards, because that's where the light is. The sun is shining. The place where the sun is really shining is where we're walking towards, and that's the so-called the identity or the enlightenment that we're trying to reach. So to put it in a very simple term, if you're an Aries, sun sign Aries, you're trying to become an Aries in your life. Let's put it this way. So usually when people are very young, let's say when they were a child, a lot of them cannot really connect with their sun sign because, it's very obvious we haven't got there yet. And the moon sign is usually about our natural emotional reaction towards things. So we tend to be we tend to feel like our moon sign more, I would say, because this is our emotion is not something we learn. It's something that naturally we it comes out, right? And so moon sign is also related to our mother, our childhood, and so that's something more I would say intrinsic in us. And the ascendant sign is talking about the path you need to walk in order to get to your sun sign.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? So if your sun sign and your ascendant or your rising sign are the same, it's actually a very good thing. It means that the path you're walking is exactly where you're heading towards. And so, and plus, for some people, their sun sign, moon sign, and the ascendant sign, they're all the same, right? Which is not very common.
No.
For those people, it's very easy for them to really channel their energy into one direction. And so those people, when you meet them, you're gonna find that they're very simple in a way that they're not complicated, because they want what they need and they need what they want, and their energy is very focused in one direction. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, and it makes sense now when I learn more about Leos, and when I get my feelings hurt, I'm very prideful. And that's not usually a Gemini thing. Geminis are very airy and, it just roll off their back. But when my pride gets hurt, you know what I mean? I am like a lion, got to go lick my wounds, So,
Correct.
so that's really cool.
Did you say your moon sign is Leo or your sun?
Yes, both.
Both. Both. Oh, okay.
Both. Yes. Yeah. So, and it's so for anybody listening, I highly recommend tell everybody an easy way that they can just find out, they're all three, because most people just, like I said, know their sun sign, and
right,
you can look at. So how do you know all three?
First of all, you definitely would need to know your birth time. And this is, really a 50-50, right? I mean, I've encountered clients who know their birth time to the minute. Like they will say, I was born at 5 37 p.m., something like that. But for some people, they just say, sorry, my mother doesn't remember, and it's not written on my birth certificate. Right. So, and I think, depending on, the country, the city you were born in, some hospitals they just don't do that. And so in that way, it might be a little bit difficult, right? Because sometimes, mother's memory might not be very accurate because they were in pain, right?
Sure.
So, but if you can find out your birth time, you can just easily log on to any astrology website, and you can put your information there, and the website should be able to give you at least your sun sign, your moon sign, and your ascendant sign. And if you still think that's not very dependable, you can also consult a professional astrologist. You can go to them, book a session with them, and they will cast a chart for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you work one-on-one with clients if they want it? Do you do charts, or do you do counts? Yeah. You do a chart, and you also do their numerology too, which I'm going to let you share a little bit about how numerology works, because, like I said, this is newer for me, and a lot of people don't understand about your numerology, your life path, and all that stuff. So, share a little bit with us.
Right. So for me, actually, it's a little bit different, because most, let's say if you find just an astrologer or whatever fortune teller or psychic online, right? So usually on their website, they will say, okay, my service include, if you want to do an astrology reading, this is how much it costs, right? If you want to do a numerology reading, this is how much it costs. I don't really do that because I identify myself as a counselor, and I am certified as a counselor in Hong Kong. So what I do is called spiritual counseling. So I don't really separate, so we're going to do astrology, we're going to do numerology. What I do is through the purpose of the session is about counseling and therapy and finding solutions and balance for either the patient or the client. And so during the session, I will make the judgment whether I should use astrology now to tackle the issue we're talking about. Sometimes the whole session, we are not looking at astrology at all. Maybe I'm purely using tarot or oracle cards. Sometimes I might be spending 80% of my session doing numerology and 20% time we're doing other things. And so it's really case by case, And so usually when a client makes an inquiry and they say, can I just do an astrology reading? I'll explain how I work with them. Unless they say, they have some very strong preference, or they will say, I don't like tarot, right? Because some people, they will be very straightforward. They will say, because of my religious beliefs or whatever, I just don't want you to use any type of cards. Can you just only use astrology? And in that case, of course, I would, try to avoid that, right? If the client is feeling uncomfortable.
I love that you do that. I love that you do that, because I think everybody should get some kind of counseling, even if there's nothing wrong in your life. I just think it's such a great tool to go to somebody and to help, to have some kind of assistance, guidance, help, whatever. And I love that you do it with astrology, tarot, numerology, instead of the traditional, especially over here in America, Western psychology, right?
Yeah,
because there's many of us that don't relate to that Western psychology where you sit and you just do the talk therapy and let's go back into our childhood and what happened to you. And that doesn't work necessarily for everyone, right? So I love that this is an option, like as my personality, and especially where I am now, this relates to me personally so much better. Tapping into my where my signs and my my numerology and the tarot, and it's just wonderful that you have come up with a way to put it all together. So, what is the Healing Kingdom? Is that what does that title mean? Because you say you're a spiritual counselor of the Healing Kingdom. What does that mean?
Right. Yeah, so so the Healing Kingdom is right my brand, right? The name of my practice.
Okay.
Right. So the healing part obviously is the part that I do therapy about the therapeutic value of our session. And I think from the very beginning of my practice, I always subconsciously had this I would say had this desire where I felt very connected to the art of healing. My first astrology teacher was not really a healer because he was more like a fortune teller, if you know what I mean. He was a psychic. So the early days training that I received in the esoteric field was really about the psychic readings and things like that. But the more I practiced, the more I realized that what really gave the clients and also gave me the sense of fulfillment and satisfaction was about therapy. And so slowly, the more I developed my career, the more I realized that I became less interested in predicting future for my clients because I don't think my clients really need that. And based on my experience, more often than not, they should be aware of their own ability to create their future instead of believing that everything is already predestined in the sky. I usually say this to my clients: astrology does not predict your future. Astrology is a little bit like a mirror synchronizing your own behavior and your own patterns. But you always have a say in changing, transforming, and improving yourself. And I think that's really the key point for someone when they go into a counseling session with therapy. Because if they believe that everything is already written in the stars, so just deal with it, right? So I can't change it. That's just what my life is. Then we're pretty much giving up on our self-manifestation, which this word is always talked about by therapists, by counselors, and by the spiritual people. And so the Healing Kingdom, the brand, is really about bringing the therapeutic and also the healing element into our session. And so that when the client walks out of a session, they're not just feeling that now someone told me about my future, but more importantly, they know that there's something that they can do to create that better future for themselves.
I love that. Well, that's all I'm about. The manifesting is creating the future that we want for ourselves, co-creating with the universe. Yeah. So let's take our break now. And then when we come back, I want to talk about about the Oracle of the Mythic Heroes. All right, everyone, stay tuned. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Everyone has a story. I have a story. You have a story. We all have a story. As I see it, you have three choices. Allow your story to define you, use it to excuse you, or utilize it as a method to empower you. It's your life. You have the power. You choose. Rewrite your story on finduniquelyyou.com.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives. Welcome back. And if you're just joining me, I have calling in from all the way from Hong Kong, Letao Wang, spiritual counselor and professional astrologist, and the creator of a deck, the tarot deck titled The Oracle of the Mythic Heroes. And Letao, what will people who get your deck find in the historical stories of the Greek and the Roman mythology, or in the heroes of their sign, like when they're doing a card pull or a reading for themselves, or, for others? A lot of people like to have decks and they do readings for their family and friends.
So in the deck, right, there are 40 mythic heroes that I've chosen, right? So each Greek hero is linked to a keyword. So, for example, let's use an example. So you are a Gemini, right? So in the chapter for Gemini, there are 3 heroes, and they are related to the 3 different decans in the constellation sign of Gemini. And those 3 heroes are Ariadne, Paris, right? The judgment of Paris, and the third one is Numa from Roman mythology. And the keyword are also different. So Ariadne is related to the keyword curiosity, and Paris is linked to the keyword indecision, and Numa is linked to the keyword humor. Right?
That sounds like me. Curiosity, indecision, and humor.
Humor, right? Exactly, right. Yeah. It's very Gemini, right? So, so those keywords were selected by me because I feel they can best, let's say, represent a Gemini's qualities, right? Of course, we can't just use 3 words to describe a sign, but I would say those are very prominent. And so when we pull a card, what we are going to see on the card is a beautiful illustration of the story about the hero, right? So, for example, in the card Paris, you will see Paris standing in the middle of the picture, and he's holding a golden apple. And in front of him, there are 3 goddesses, the goddess Hera, Athena, as well as Aphrodite. And you can see on the card that Paris looked very, very confused, and he did not know whom he should give the golden apple to. And the story was basically about him needing to choose the most beautiful goddess in the world. And he was looking at those 3 women and thinking, what do I do about this? And so when we are looking at the illustration, first of all, we can, just to feel from that picture, right? Because the picture also says indecision there. So what do we feel about that picture if you don't know the story yet? And of course, when you really dive into the stories, you will understand that the whole picture of judgment of Paris and why was he indecisive, and his indecision led to what, right, at a later stage. And so through these, the storytelling and also on the teaching section in the guidebook, we'll be able to find some either, let's say, challenges that we're dealing with at that moment, or we might be just gaining some kind of wisdom that we might need to hear. at that time. So this is actually a daily practice that I would highly recommend to people. Sometimes, we don't really need to use cards to answer a very complicated, life-changing question. Sometimes it's just a daily question like, okay, I just need to know what I need to know so that today I will be happy. I will have a better and productive day. Or I will be the best version of myself. And I think that's when we use oracle cards. And I also think what sets my deck different from a lot of other oracle cards is that my deck has a very strong storytelling element in it. And so you can really read the story and use your own imagination and intuition to connect yourself with the hero in the story.
I love that. That's why I love oracle decks. And the way that I always do it is I shuffle a lot. I like the act of shuffling. And whatever jumps out, I always allow it to jump out because there's always one that does or two. Yeah. And then I feel like, okay, that's what I need to hear today. And it always somehow relates to something I'm thinking about or something that's happening in my life. So I'm always getting messages. And the people that listen to my show are the kind of people that believe that we get messages from spirit, the universe, God, Buddha, whatever you want. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to call it, right? That we're always receiving messages from the universe. So, yeah, I love the fact that you can just grab a card and ask yourself, what is it today that I need to hear? And you actually have when I have a guest, I ask, sometimes they'll send me some questions. And one of your questions is, what might the universe be telling us in the card for Medusa? And I really want to know the answer to that question. Medusa is a very fascinating character. So, so what will the universe be telling us in the card for Medusa?
Yeah, so that's such an amazing question, actually. I love that question so much. Medusa is it's such a complex figure, right, in Greek mythology, because she herself, we don't know if we would really call her a hero, but definitely in the early stage of her story, she was a victim. Just in case our audience is not familiar with Medusa's story, right? So she originally was a priestess serving in Athena's temple. Athena is the goddess of justice and wisdom. But to be a priestess, a loyal priestess to Athena, the priestess has to remain her virginity. She cannot marry a guy. She cannot have any sexual contact with a male. And that's just Athena's requirement because Athena herself is a virgin goddess. But Medusa was seduced by the god of ocean, Poseidon. In some version of the story, they say Poseidon actually raped her in the story. So she was victimized, right? But at the end, Athena punished her instead of Poseidon. Which is, in our modern day perspective, it's crazy, right? Because,
I have to tell you, I have to just say truthfully, for a lot of women, not much has changed, sadly. That a lot of women get blamed for being, raped and attacked and assaulted. So it's interesting that this is a mythological story. Okay, go ahead. I'll let you continue.
Yeah. Oh, I totally hear you, right? We still see that kind of, things happening, not just in the States, but in Asia a lot, right?
Yeah, sure.
So after that, Athena, some people say it's a punishment, but also some mythologists and scholars say it's actually a protection from Athena. So Athena transformed Medusa into an ugly monster. So she lost her beauty and she had snake hair and all that, right? And some people say, it's Athena trying to protect her from male predators. But obviously, it's also a kind of punishment for her. And so that's sort of like when she was deemed as a monster and she was afraid to look at anything because anything she sees will be turned into stone.
To stone,
now,
right.
Now, obviously for the people around her, they were scared. Nobody wants to look at her. But deep down, she's also very sad because you can imagine if you can't look at anything, then you can't really love anyone. Because anyone you love, you look at them, you will turn them into stone. So how can you make a connection with them, right? So that part of the story is very tragic. But in psychology and in specifically in the way we see Medusa's energy in psychology, it's about us feeling that things are being turned into stone and stuck. But deep down, the real reason is because we can't really reflect on that. Because in the story at the end, when Medusa was conquered by the hero Perseus, Perseus didn't really just kill her. Perseus used the mirror. And so in some version of the story, Medusa saw her own reflection in the mirror. And so she turned herself into stone. And that's how, and so that's how she, was in a way released from this curse from Athena, right? And she could find her peace. And so one of the things about, putting out Medusa card, you can see the keyword that I have linked Medusa with in the guidebook is reflection. And so usually in our sessions, when we feel a client is very, very stuck in their mind, and what we really want them to do is to go through their deep reflection over their emotion. Especially what I realize about people pulling Medusa card is they might feel either they're very stuck or they tend to have this very negative thinking, but they use that as a proof to make themselves feeling even more miserable. And a typical example, for example, in the book, the case study that I did was one of my clients. She felt very stuck in love. I mean, she couldn't find love for a long time. And she started to put into this idea in her own mind. She thinks of, because I'm not an attractive woman. I'm not attractive. Men don't like me anyway. So what's the point of trying? Right? Even if I try and they're not going to, let's say, respond in a positive way, they're not going to return my affection. So I hate it. I don't love it. I don't believe in love. I don't want love. And it only hurts me. That kind of very negative cycle, right? Because once someone gets into that cycle, then they stop loving. But the more they do that, the further away they are from love. Right. So that's very much sort of like that kind of, we are being turned into stone. And also we're very afraid to really gaze at love or gaze at something because we wonder, if I really gaze at that, then I will be turned into stone as well. And so for this kind of energy, I think for anyone who pulls Medusa, I mean, sometimes, we all go through that kind of, stage, right? Because life goes ups and downs. But I think the most important thing is we need to find that shiny mirror. That we have to look at ourselves and be like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Is this rational? Or am I just playing this negative mental game with myself? And sometimes I would even recommend to my client that maybe really every day in the morning, look into the mirror, just look at yourself and say something nice and say something beautiful about who you are. Because the more you can reflect physically, both physically and, let's say, spiritually, the more you are, let's say, the closer you are towards breaking this blockage for you. And the interesting thing is we rarely see ourselves, right, in our daily life. Right? When do we see ourselves? Only in the morning when you wash your face or whatever. Right. And it's very interesting. There was one time a client told me that she would even avoid looking at herself in the mirror in the morning. She just, sometimes when we don't want to look in the mirror, what that say about us? It says to us that we don't like ourselves.
Absolutely.
So sometimes reflection talks a lot about what is actually, I don't like to say what's wrong, but it's what is lacking there or what we really need to work on.
Well, listening to you talk, and you said reflection, it made me feel like Medusa represents what are you seeing? What is being mirrored back to you, right? What is being mirrored back to you? So if you're putting out, like you said, negativity, then what's going to happen is, yes, if you're always negative, you're going to have a lot of negative experiences. And if you're negative about, like your one client, love, then of course she's going to be right? Everybody who's going to show up to her is going to prove her right. So what is being mirrored back to you? So that makes perfect sense. You know, what the universe is showing you, right? Yeah. And it's funny that you said that about mirror work, because I've talked about that in Postcards book, but also I'm working on another book, and it's all about mirror work and looking at ourselves and doing that work and saying kind things to ourselves instead of criticizing, because we have a tendency to look in the mirror and point out everything that's wrong, right? We want to shift that a little. Yeah, we want to shift that. I love that. You also talk about the card Orpheus, and that has a significant message. So can you share a little bit about Orpheus? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So I would say this is my favorite Greek hero, right? If not, well, I would say maybe top 2, top 3, yeah, if not the best.
Okay.
So Orpheus, the keyword that I've associated him with is healing. And Orpheus is actually a master healer from Greek mythology. He's a musician. But he doesn't play music as an entertainer. He plays music to heal people's pain, because his music is very, very therapeutic. The story about him was how he descended into the underworld to save his wife, Eurydice, due to a poisonous snake bite. But at the end of the day, he couldn't trust Hades. Hades basically promised him to give him his wife back, but only under the condition that he wouldn't look back at her. Until he reaches the sunlight. But at the last minute, last second, he lost trust. He looked back. He needed that confirmation that his wife was actually following him. And because of that mistake, his wife's soul dispersed into smoke. And he was banned from going to the underworld ever again. And I think the reason why I like this character a lot is because I personally, and I also feel that a lot of my clients can associate with Orpheus' story. On the surface, it was about him not trusting Hades, the god of the underworld, right? But deep down, I really feel that Hades is a symbol of our psychology, because Hades is the god of the underworld, and the underworld is deep and dark, and we're so afraid to get to, right? But it's always there, the transformational power that we all have. So Orpheus not trusting Hades to save his love was about us not really trusting our own deep psychology. We don't really trust our intuitive self. And so we keep looking back. We keep needing that validation or confirmation that we are doing the right thing, that it's going to go my way. But the more we do that, the less chance we have to manifestation, let's say. So I really feel this Orpheus card is about releasing our fear. And it's not about the fear towards other people, but it's more about the fear towards we won't be able to have what we want. And so it's, I love his story so much because I find it so deep. There's so many layers there, right? And also Orpheus, in a different way, he was also, like what I said, he was a healer, but after the failure of saving his wife, he refused to marry anyone else until the day he died, because he was in so much pain. He regretted his decision, looking back, right?
Looking back.
Sometimes, yeah, exactly. So we can also see this as sometimes a master healer or a true therapist have to go through their own sense of loss. They have to go through their own pain in order to become a true healer, so that they can find their innate empathy towards their patients or their clients. And that's who Orpheus is. So what I will also say to a lot of people who are listening to our podcast, I feel that if you are going through some difficulties or challenges or loss, let's say a family member or loved one, also see this as your own empowerment. Because through that painful experience, then you yourself will find that inner healer in you, not only to heal yourself, but you might even be able to provide a very important, play a very important therapeutic role to the people around you who you love. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love that. Yeah. And it's interesting too. Maybe the card may just be telling you, be careful, don't keep looking back. Like maybe you just need to start
100%.
looking forward, right? So when you
Yeah.
were deciding to create this deck, this oracle deck, and you're going through the stories, is that what you did? Did you go back? Because I remember some of the stories listening to you talk, but it's been many years since I was in school learning about the Greek mythology. So you forget some of the stories after time. Did you like do a lot of research and certain stories stood out to you and that's what made you choose them? Like what was your process working to create this deck?
Interesting. So I actually I've always been writing stories. Yeah. So it's just a habit of mine. Yeah. So I think when I really wanted to create this deck, I actually already had a lot of stories there. Just in my past writing or whatever, my journal, right? And so when I was going through on the past writing, I realized that I could actually group all those stories together and make it a very interesting a deck of cards, or a book for people to read and I also realized that all the different stories they can be associated with the constellation signs, and so this could also be very good for astrology lovers because they will be able to understand the story from an astrological perspective. And so I selected those 40 stories from my reservoir of writing. Yeah, and I put them together with the astrological element. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, you also talk about, which I kind of remembered, the myth of Theseus, and then I had to relook it up before the show, and I was like, oh, the sacrificing for the greater good, right? Okay, so because you talk about the myth of Theseus as it's very good to know that story to be a stronger leader. So I'm going to let you. Yeah, like how would that relate, like for those of us that want to be stronger leaders, and especially for the leaders of our world, right? Politicians, maybe they should read the story.
Right. So what is interesting about Theseus' story is that most people know him as the king of Athens. He was probably one of the most prominent heroes from Greek mythology. But what I understand about Theseus was he was not just a king, because he was the one who actually, he was very famous for his deed of, slaughtering the Minotaur, the monster in the labyrinth, and saving the young boys and young girls, right? So you can tell that not only is he a king, but also he's a warrior. He is the one actually taking the action to save people, to save the kids. And he's not there just giving instructions, oh, you do this, you do that. But he is actually the one doing it. And so his leadership, first of all, is really lies in his own sense of action. And he's setting a great example for the people around him. And after he became the king, he pretty much transformed Athens, this ancient city. Like he was building dams, he was building bridges together with the people of Athens, right? So again, he was not really just like a royalty, sitting in his throne and enjoying his wine and be, okay, I'm the king, everyone respect me, please. He was really the doer. He was the one setting a great example for the people around him during the wartime when he was slaughtering the Minotaur, and also during the peaceful time when he was really building the city. And so that's what I love about Theseus, because I feel that, he really set a great example to a lot of the people in modern days. If you want to become a leader, whether you want to become a leader of a country, or maybe you are just let's say a CEO of a small company, right? I mean, how would you like people to see you as a Theseus, the king of Athens, in your own environment? And that's what it is. Yeah. So, so I think he would be the perfect match for the constellation sign of Aries, and the key word is leadership.
Yeah, and looking at what's best for the greater good and not the individual, which is really, really interesting. I love the symbolism in the cards. Now, tell people listening, because we only have a few minutes, where they can get the deck, and if they want to connect with you, if they want to work with you, what's the best way to do that?
Right. So the Oracle of the Mythic Heroes can be purchased on Amazon, Amazon.com, or Amazon globally. And probably you will also be able to find this, in tarot shops, shops where you usually buy tarot cards or oracle cards. And to find out more information about me and my service, you can just connect to my website, www.thehealingkingdom.com. Or you can also find more information about me through my official Instagram account, which is just my name, Letao Wang. Yeah.
Okay. And if you do work with people internationally, right? Through Skype or Zoom or whatever, however
Correct,
you do that.
yeah.
Like you could do sessions with people.
Correct, yeah.
I'm curious, when did your deck get published? Was it just this year, 2024?
Right. So Oracle of the Mythic Heroes was officially released on January the 9th, 2024 this year. So just 3 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, and can you just tell us the name of you have another deck I saw on your website. How many other decks do you have?
Right. So the next deck that is coming out is actually just in about 2 months' time. It's going to be released on June the 8th, I think June the 18th or June the 19th, yeah.
My birthday.
It's called Oh, really? Oh, happy birthday.
But the 19th is my birthday, so yeah. Okay.
Awesome, yeah. I'll make sure that you get a birthday gift from me.
Oh, you're so sweet. So what's going to be that deck is about? I'm excited.
Right.
What's that one about?
So it's called... Yeah, so that one is called Oracle of the Celestial Deities. And what is interesting is this is actually the sequel of Oracle of the Mythic Heroes. Because this deck, right, the Mythic Heroes, mainly I talked about the 40 mortal heroes, right, the human stories. But
we'll have to look out for that. Thank you, Letao. Sorry, we got to wrap it up, but we'll have to look out for that. I really appreciate you being here with me today, guys. Check out Letao Wang and his work and his decks. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave, and wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.